What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, I'm going to show you how to make tomato plants produce fruit weeks earlier and ripen faster. Let's go! Now is the time of year when our tomato plants are loaded with fruit. Like you can see on this mushroom basket tomato right here. The fruit looks beautiful, but it seems like it takes so dang long to ripen sometimes. Then you see people like me, and I'm already out here grabbing harvests from my plants. And you're probably thinking, how do they get those things to ripen so dang early? Well, I've been growing tomatoes for almost 15 years now. When I first started, I just grabbed the plant, tossed it into the ground, and let it do its thing. I got a few tomatoes from it. But as the years have progressed, I have developed some of my own methods and my own style of growing tomatoes that causes the tomato plants to produce early, ripen faster, and continue to kick out fruit up until a frost. Take a look at my tomato trellis. Look at all the tomatoes on here. So many are ripe and ready to be picked. Let me show you how I get my tomatoes to ripen earlier. The first method seems counterintuitive because we need to take something away from the plant to encourage it to give us something back. But pruning has some major benefits, especially when it comes to ripening. Tomatoes that are pruned tend to produce fruit 2 weeks earlier than ones that aren't pruned. And my style of pruning has some added benefits. Before we get into pruning, I want to first mention that this pruning style that I'm going to show you quickly is for indeterminate tomatoes. These are tomatoes that will continue to flower and produce fruit up until a frost kills them or a disease. This pruning style is not for determinate tomatoes, which we have right over here. Our determinate tomatoes will produce one big flush of fruit all at once, and then it will stop producing after that. When I grow my determinate tomatoes, I grow them in cages like this and let them bush out. The only pruning I do in my determinate tomatoes is to remove some of the lower leaves that could potentially be in contact with the soil, or leaves that have some disease issues on them. This way, the diseases don't spread up the plant, and by removing these lower leaves, we increase the airflow, which reduces the chance of us getting diseased plants. Here is an indeterminate tomato. This will continue to produce fruit up until a frost. In the basic version, to get our plants to produce earlier and ripen faster, what we want to do is come in here. We want to prune our plants to a single stem. See how we have one stem going up? You could follow it up the whole plant. You see fruit set after fruit set after fruit set. The reason we do this is because when we prune our plants, we are redirecting the energy from growing leaves and new shoots over to the production of fruit and the ripening of that fruit. It's like we choose to make the plant focus on fruit instead of on the leaves because that's what we want more of. If you don't prune, you'll end up with a plant that's big and bushy and it looks really nice when it's green, but in my opinion, I'd rather have a tomato trellis loaded with fruit like you see right here. To properly prune a tomato plant, we first need to understand a few parts of it. So come down here with me. Right here, just imagine that this is a young tomato plant. So what you'll notice is we have these leaves right here. These are the fan leaves or the sun leaves. This is what takes in sun to photosynthesize. Then we just have the basic stem, and then at the top here, what you'll notice is this is the growth tip. This is where the new leaves are unfolding from. Now, as we go down, you'll notice that this plant is right now growing up one single stem. But if we allow this plant to continue to grow, a pattern will play out. It will flower at the top, like you see right here. Then a new growth tip will start to emerge in the crotch of the stem and the leaf right here. So you'll notice there's one down here too, it's very small. So we've got the stem here and the leaf in the crotch of that. A new growth tip will emerge. So just imagine that this growth tip has gotten bigger to the point where it's like this. So that's how it would play out. What you'll notice is if we just turn it down, this grows exactly like a new tomato plant will. So what happens is if we don't prune our tomato plants, is they'll get super bushy because this same pattern will play out over and over again. Growing up a single stem, then a new growth tip will emerge, it'll shoot out of it, and then from this one, which was a growth tip, more will emerge, more will emerge. The plant will get super, super bushy, like you see back here. This is an indeterminate plant that wasn't pruned. look how bushy it is everywhere. And you might be thinking, that looks pretty good. But when it comes to indeterminate tomatoes, being bushy like this isn't ideal because it makes it much more susceptible to disease issues, and the tomatoes ripen slower on here and you'll get later production out of this kind of plant. With what we just learned, we can now apply it and see that if we want to grow a plant up a single stem like this, then we have to remove the growth points that grow between the crotch of the stem and the leaf. These are known as suckers because if we leave them on the plant, they'll suck energy from the tomato plant. So what we do is just take our finger when they're small, ideally, and just pop these suckers off. You can just usually fold it back and forth just like this and it comes right off. That's the most ideal time to grab them. But if they're a little larger, like you see right up here, here's another sucker. You see it growing on the tomato plant. We could just use pruners. One thing you want to make sure of though is that you first clean your pruners with isopropyl alcohol before you go cutting your plants, because we don't want to spread disease from one plant to the next. So we'll just take these pruners and remove the sucker just like this. Check out my plants after they're pruned. Look at the high level of production that I get in a small amount of space. And as you move through the lower, notice that I remove a lot of the lower leaves and the suckers. I mean, the plants just look beautiful. And when I do this, they get a lot more airflow and light moving through the plants, which helps prevent diseases. And that in turn helps the plants ripen tomatoes faster. Just think about it for a second. A tomato plant, if you have it, if it's super healthy, then it's just kind of doing its thing. But if the plant gets disease issues, then it needs to spend some of its own energy to try to fight off that disease issue. Then it's not using all of its energy on the ripening of fruit and producing new fruit and flowers. So when we keep our plants healthy and happy, they can remain focused on what we want them to focus on, which is fruit production. Not to mention, when we open up our plants to getting more airflow, this will prevent disease and allow our plants to grow later into the season, increasing our overall production. Plus, when we prune, we open our plants up to more light and the tomatoes. Tomatoes that get direct sunlight ripen faster and have a higher level of vitamin C. One thing to note is that if you live in the South or in an area that gets a lot of direct sun and you're growing something like a beefsteak tomato like you see right here, then if your plants get too much direct sunlight, then they can get Sunscald, which is essentially sunburn on your plants. It looks like this. That's not what we want. What we can do to prevent this, and it has to do with knowing your area, your location, how much sun your plants get, is what we do is we allow, if you come in here, you'll notice, we allow some of the suckers to grow in the center of the plant. So this sucker is growing in the center of the plant, and what it's doing is it's now providing some shade for this fruit here, so it doesn't just get pelted by the sun all day. The sun is great, and direct sunlight on our fruit is great, but everything in moderation. That's just the way it goes. Another thing is, you'll notice right here, I've got this tomato plant. It's already been pruned a little bit, but if your tomato plants haven't been pruned at all and you want to get out there and start pruning them, you don't want to just get out there and prune every sucker off the plant. It will just be too much stress on that plant. So if you haven't pruned your tomato plants before and you want to start pruning them, just take it a little bit at a time, one day at a time. The last thing you want to do is just remove half the plant in a day, stress the thing out, and kill it. So a good way to start if you want to try some pruning is start with the new growth and remove any of the suckers that you can just take off with your hands, like this one up here. Don't go overly crazy and cut your plant up in pieces, because that will end up stressing the plant out too much and it will just end up being more harm than good. So when it comes down to it, take it slow and know your location, because where you live will greatly affect how your tomato plants grow and how much direct sunlight they should receive. I want to show you an advanced pruning technique that I came up with myself to help boost tomato production. Come in here real quick. This right here, this grew out as a sucker like I showed you before, and it followed that same pattern, but we used the pattern to our advantage. So the sucker grew out, right? And then once it fruited, it flowered, then it fruit right here. Then I went back and I removed the growing tip above the fruit. I'll also remove this new growing tip that formed right here, this sucker, and we'll take it out. This way, what I did was I let a sucker grow, but the only thing that I allowed to remain on it was the fruit. So I'm basically getting more fruit, but I'm not letting the plant continue to bush out too much. When we do this, we can just increase the overall production without having a bunch of suckers growing in every direction and making the plant bush out a whole lot, but we can also get that advantage of getting the fruit from the sucker. It's kind of like just, you know, pushing and forcing your tomato plants to produce more in a smaller amount of space. You'll notice we can get a lot out of this space. I have 20 plants in 20 square feet. If you go up, you might notice though that these plants are getting tall. And that's what happens when you grow plants of a single stem. That's an argument or a complaint people sometimes have. Don't worry, I have a solution for that. When it comes to your tomato plants, you'll notice they grow up I grow them up a string, and then I take these tomato clips, it's probably easier to see over here, these tomato clips, and I clip it to the string as it grows. The interesting and cool thing about this string and these clips is if you go to the top, once these tomato plants get to the top, we do something known as lowering and leaning. This is a roller hook. I press it, it releases more string, and then that allows me to drop the plant down. This plant can take that really well. As you come down, you'll notice it doesn't mind bending at the bottom because this plant is a vine. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't mind bending like that. And then we've got this beautiful production right here, which means the fruit and the managing of the plant always remains at like a good manageable height because of this system of the lowering and leaning. So it's an efficient system, it's an easy system to work with, and it's really nice to go out and harvest from your plants because you're not going to be missing any tomatoes. Once they start to ripen, you could grab them right off the vine. This leads into the second way I get tomatoes to ripen early, and it ties into the trellis right next to me. It has to do with varieties. Look how I can grow 20 different varieties of tomatoes in 20 square feet. And when we could do this and grow so many different varieties in a small section, we could grow some varieties that specialize for certain things. For instance, come in here. I've got the Sakura tomato right here. The cool thing about the Sakura tomato is it's known to ripen 2 to 3 weeks earlier than the standard tomato. So we can get tomatoes earlier simply by planting varieties that are bred to ripen earlier. Another cool thing about this trellis, as you take a step back a little bit more, is just say that I was growing my tomatoes on the ground and was letting them sprawl out. If you let a tomato sprawl on the ground, then one tomato plant takes up about 5 square feet. In this section, I have one tomato plant that takes 1 square foot up. So essentially, if I had this same 20 square feet, I would only be able to grow 4 tomatoes that are sprawling along the ground. When the tomatoes sprawl along the ground and get bushy, it's harder to find the fruit. There's more chances of diseases showing up. And I mean, it's tough. You can only grow, 4 plants in 20 square feet. But if I lose one of those 4 plants, then I only have 3 plants left, and hopefully those 3 plants do well. In this setup, I have 20 plants. If for some reason one of these plants gets an issue and I lose 1 plant, I'm not worried about it. I still have 19 more plants. What that also allows me to do is, because I can grow so many different varieties, like I mentioned, I can grow varieties that specialize in certain things. This year it's been a tough year for early blight. I mean, really tough. But when I grow in here, I can grow varieties like the cherry bomb tomato, which have bomb-proof resistance and disease resistance to that early blight. And I could even grow something like this one, the Mountain Magic. This one also has great resistance to blight. So when we allow ourselves to grow a number of different varieties, we can have some of those specialize in problems we might be having in the garden. The third way I get earlier production from my tomato plants is making sure that I keep them well fed. So when your plants first start growing and they're young, it takes a lot of energy and nutrition to produce all those leaves to grow up to the point where they start fruiting and flowering. So what we want to make sure is we keep those plants in that steady growing and that healthy stage. What we don't want to do is to have to go out there and give plants a fertilizer after they need it. It's always better to be proactive and get out there before they're showing signs of needing it, rather than being reactive and getting out there after the plants start yellowing or showing that they need some fertilizer. This way our plants can stay singularly focused on the production of fruit and flowers and not have to worry about looking for more nutrition somewhere else or just stressing the plant out. What I suggest you do is, once you see your plants start heading into production, producing flowers and fruits, you want to go out there with an all-purpose fertilizer. I like using my JP's Secret Stuff, and you want to give your plants a top dressing of this. This way, when the plants need the nutrition, it's already in the ground, ready for them, and that will just make it so your plants grow super healthy and are really productive. One thing we want to make sure of though is that we're giving our plants either a balanced fertilizer, like you see here, a 3-3-3, or we're giving our plants a fertilizer that's higher in phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus and potassium are what will help our plants with fruit production, ripening, and also flower production. If we give our plants too much nitrogen, then our plants will focus on leaf growth. That's the opposite of what we want. So if you're gonna go out there and top dress your plants, make sure you don't give them a fertilizer that's higher in nitrogen, or they'll be focused on leaves, and nah, we don't want that. We want them focused on fruit. The fourth way to make your tomatoes ripen faster is to make sure you're applying an organic mulch. Something like wood chips work fantastic. Just put them around the base of your plants. What this does is it helps retain the soil moisture, it helps regulate the temperature in the soil, and it helps suppress weeds. All of which are things that will lead to healthier plants that have fruit that ripens faster. Another thing the mulch will do is it will help your tomatoes actually prevent from getting blossom end rot. Even though blossom end rot is due to lack of calcium, because that plant needs calcium, that fruit, to actually form it, the thing is, the soil, it probably has adequate calcium in it. The reason that you're getting blossom end rot is because calcium is immobile. What that means is it needs water to move it up the plant and into that fruit. So if you're letting your soil dry out way too much and then you're coming back with a heavy watering, then that uneven watering will make it so the calcium can't really move up through the plant and get to your fruit. That's why you're getting blossom end rot. But if you put a mulch down, what that does is it helps, after you do a deep watering, it helps the soil to slowly and evenly dry out. Then before it's too dry, when the soil's still moist, you could go back with another heavy watering. This better watering practice will lead to plants that don't have blossom end rot and plants that just grow a lot healthier, that are a lot happier, which lead to quicker ripening fruit. The fifth way I get my tomatoes to ripen faster is by using proper watering practices. So this year has been a tough year for blight, early blight especially, because it's been raining so much, it's so hot, and then it's been so dang humid. So what has happened is these leaves have remained wet for a long period of time because of all that rain and that heat. When you have the leaves wet and it's really warm out, and that just opens up the plant and invites in so many fungal issues, things like early blight. So what we want to make sure we're doing is whenever we're watering our tomato plants, we don't want to get the leaves wet if we don't have to. I mean, that just is, again, going to open them up to disease. So the proper way to water is to grab your hose or whatever you're using and then take it and water right at the base of your plants, just like this, with a deep watering. We don't want to get any of the foliage wet. If you have to, for some reason, get the leaves wet when watering, then just make sure that you water your plants in the morning. This way they have like all day to dry out. The last thing we want is to water our plants with an overhead watering, getting the leaves wet like later in the afternoon, and then they have to stay all night in the hot, humid temperature and remain wet. I mean, that's just gonna decimate your plants, and early blight's gonna be running wild in your garden. If your plants are unhealthy, and it's like we talked about before, they're not gonna have that singular focus on just fruit production. They're gonna be fighting off disease. So when it comes down to it, water your plants at the base. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope that you get out there and do some pruning on your tomato plants to see the difference of how much earlier they produce, how much easier it is to manage, how much less disease problems they have, and just all the benefits that come from it. If you've never done it before, then just try your hand at one tomato plant that you prune. Maybe leave the other ones this year, then in the future you can prune some more, but I have found that pruning tomato plants has so many benefits. There's a few other things that might be going on with your plants at this point right now. One of them could be the tomato hornworm. If you're seeing those on your plants, a great organic option, which I love to use, is the BT. This stuff works fantastic. It's safe to use, and it's definitely something that I'm fine spraying on my tomato plants. I also use it on my brassica plants for the cabbage worms. Like I mentioned earlier, it's been a tough year for early blight because it's just been so humid and so wet. If you're seeing your plants with early blight on them, what I would do is I would first go out there, remove all of the leaves that are diseased or damaged, take them off. That will help stop the spread of the blight, and that will also increase the airflow to help prevent more blight happening. Then you want to make sure that you're removing, I mean, you'll be doing it anyways, any of those lower leaves, and you're getting a mulch down so that when it rains, the rain doesn't splash up dirt onto your leaves. That's just gonna cause problems too. So make sure you got that stuff covered. Another thing you could do is just make sure in the future that you're growing some varieties that are resistant to that early blight. Some people will go out and spray their plants with things like copper fungicide. That's not something that I feel super comfortable with spraying on my tomatoes because they're annuals and we're going to eat the fruit so soon. That's up to you if you want to do it, but that's not something I would personally do. Overall, I've had a blast with this video, and I think it was a lot of fun, and I truly hope that you guys got something from it and that you learned from it. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, throw a like down in the comments, and just share this video with your friends, because even a comment makes a considerable difference and helps the channel. One thing I wanted to mention is that you guys gotta check out the community over at teamgrow.us. We have like well over 2,800 members now of people on there posting. People like Amber Owens, who did an awesome post where she built the same exact tomato trellis that I just showed you, and she's got some healthy looking tomatoes under it. She said that this was like, the picture she posted was 2 weeks ago. At this point, the tomatoes had doubled in size. So I'm excited to see her next update of how well the trellis is growing, what the tomatoes look like, and it's just it's fun to just be on the community with all like-minded people who are there for the one singular reason, and that's to grow a better future together. It's free to join, it's a lot of fun. Check it out at teamgrow.us. Another thing I wanted to mention is the merch. You guys gotta check it out. This is one of my new favorite designs. It ties in with what we're doing because it's tomatoes grown from that young stage all the way up to production, and it's got the Let It Grow on it. A little bit of the reminiscence of the Let It Be from the Beatles, but sometimes you just gotta kick back after you prune and let it grow. I also wanted to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Lena Frandon. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. Today seems like such a relief. It was insanely hot like the past week and so humid and just insane. Today it's pretty cool. We've got a nice breeze. It's refreshing. It's fun to be out in the garden. So when we get these days, I feel so gifted and blessed with them. I gotta get out. I gotta make a video. Then I gotta get out here, get working in the garden, because there ain't nothing better. I'll be back to you with another one real soon. We out.